Punch Audio presents When Summer Suns Were Glowing, Inventing Alice and Wonderland, from the book by Lewis Carroll, adapted for the stage and for this audio presentation by E. Tomalin. Act 1. Starting out. An elderly Oxford don sits at his desk in his study at the university, reading. He slams a book closed.
That confounded Charles Dodson can never speak the truth. He supports Charles Darwin's idea that we're descended from apes. He is a mathematical lecturer at the Christ Church College of Oxford and invents fanciful stories. Then he signs his book with a fictitious name, Lewis Carroll. He is not a serious man. He is an ordained deacon of the church, but does not pursue becoming a priest, as is required of his position, perhaps because he cannot tell the truth. Then he says that he has child friends, a grown man. Who ever heard of that, I ask you? His books are filled with rubbish. Let me show you. Here it is. All in the golden afternoon, full leisurely we glide, for both our oars with little skill by little arms are plied, while little hands make vain pretence our wanderings to guide. Ah, cruel three, in such an hour, beneath such dreamy weather, to beg a tale of breath too weak to stir the tiniest feather. Yet what can one poor voice avail against three tongues together? Imperious Prima flashes forth her edict to begin it. In gentler tones, Secunda hopes there will be nonsense in it, while Tertia interrupts the tale not more than once a minute. Anon to sudden silence won, in fancy they pursue the dream child moving through a land of wonders wild and new, in friendly chat with bird or beast, and half believe it true. Whew!
He slams the book down contemptuously. Now we see Lorena, Alice, and Edith playing by themselves in the nursery. Lorena and Edith are holding hands facing each other and forming a bridge. Alice is going around Lorena and under the bridge. They are singing the song, London Bridges.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. Take a key and lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. Take a key and lock her up, my fair lady. Build a top with gold and silver, gold and silver, gold and silver. Build a top with gold and silver, my fair lady.
Gold
and silver I have none, I have none, I have none. Gold and silver I have none, my fair lady. Then off to prison she must go, she must go, she must go. Then off to prison she must go, my fair lady. Break the lock and set her free, set her free, set her free. Break the lock and set her free, my fair lady.
Now a servant opens the door and asks two young men to come into the Liddell's parlour. They are dressed in white linen suits and straw boater hats.
Won't you good gentlemen please come in?
Thank you very kindly. Would you be so good as to tell Mrs. Liddell that the Reverend Robinson Duckworth and Charles Dodgson are here?
I will do so right away, sir.
Thank you very much.
Charles, what are we going to do with them?
Well, we'll walk to the river, rent a boat at Folly Bridge, and then boat upstream to Godstow or thereabouts.
But they shall get very fidgety in a short time.
Nonsense. There will be lots to look at, and they can dip their hand in the water to cool off if it gets too melting. We can even go ashore and wander about some fields if it suits us. I have 7 sisters, 5 younger, and I know that girls are very good at finding things to amuse themselves.
Quite.
Really, better than boys, you know.
Yes, well, I certainly hope you are right. It is a beautiful day, that's sure. Sunny and warm.
Ah, it is.
The girls are almost ready and will be here in a minute. Thank you both so much. Their nursemaid has the day off today, and Mr. Dodgson was very kind to offer to help out. The Dean and I simply must attend a garden party given at Marlborough. It is sort of a command performance, you know, and of course the children could not go. They have been looking forward to their outing with the two of you today. I do hope it will not be too much trouble for you.
Oh, no trouble at all. We are looking forward to our little excursion.
Ah, here they are at last. Lorena, Alice and Edith. You know Mr. Dodgson, but do you know his friend, Mr. Duckworth? Please curtsy and thank him for looking after you today till I get back.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Duckworth
and Mr.
Dodgson.
We shall be back before dark. We plan to take a boat on the river and row a bit upstream and sort of drift back, enjoy the scenery, converse and tell stories.
Thank you both again.
Now the party gets into a rowboat. The 3 girls sit in the back and Alice holds the tiller. Mr. Duckworth sits facing them in the next seat with one set of oars, and Mr. Dodgson sits in the seat behind him, holding another set of oars. They push off from the bank. All right, now, Charles, you must synchronize your oar strokes with mine. Can you do that?
I will try.
Good. And Alice, you are responsible for steering us so that we don't bump into the banks of the stream.
I know.
It is getting quite warm, I think.
Lorena, just put your hand in the water and let it sit there a bit. It will cool you off.
How long will it take us to get to where we shall have lunch?
I told you they would get restless.
Oh, Edith, it will only take us an hour or so. We'll lunch near Godstow. Let's play a game. How many cows can we find? The first one to 20 wins.
The girls use their hands as a visor and look intently.
I see 7 over there. That is not fair. I saw them too.
Well, you both deserve credit.
I see 3 coming out from behind the barn.
Indeed so.
Can we row?
Oh, it is much too difficult. One has to get into a rhythm and pull the oars together. Going upstream, the current is fighting against one the whole time. You would not last a minute at it.
Maybe the girls could try it on the way back when we're going downstream.
Could we?
Yes, that might be possible. We could try it on the way home, if you are not too tired by then.
Oh, I think I just saw a bunny over there.
I can't see it. He must have just got down his rabbit hole.
He was brown with a white tail.
He may have been afraid of the puppy in that hiking party over there.
Yes, that could be it.
Could you make up a story about it? It would pass the time.
Oh, yes.
Well, I'm not quite sure what kind of story to tell.
Oh, just begin it.
And be sure there's nonsense in it.
Yes, quite. Please do come up with something, Charles, or this will be a very long voyage.
Well, let's see. Well, it was a very warm day, like today. and a little girl named Alice was beginning to feel drowsy when she saw a white rabbit with pink eyes run past her and stop. She heard the rabbit say to itself, "Dear, oh dear, I shall be late."
Rabbits can't talk.
Well, this is an imaginary rabbit and he could talk, but that was not even the most extraordinary thing.
What was it?
That he could talk.
Oh,
No. What was the most extraordinary thing was that he was wearing a waistcoat, and he took a pocket watch out of his pocket and looked at it.
oh.
That is the nonsense in it, Edith. See?
Go on, Mr. Dodgson.
Well, when Alice heard what the rabbit said and saw him pull a pocket watch out of his grey waistcoat, it flashed across her mind that she had never seen a rabbit with either a waistcoat pocket or a watch to take out of it. She became very curious about this strange rabbit, and when he ran off, she got up and chased after him. And just like the rabbit that our Alice saw in the field, when it got to some hedges, it disappeared down a rabbit hole. Well, Alice was not to be defeated, and she went down the rabbit hole after it, without a thought about how she was to get out.
Alice couldn't go down a rabbit hole. She would be too big.
But this was an imaginary Alice, and she could go down the rabbit hole.
Oh.
And she found herself falling down the rabbit hole. It was like she was falling down a very, very deep well. She worried that she would fall all the way to the other side of the earth, where people stand on their heads all the time. She fell past cupboards with things like marmalade on the shelves.
I am getting hungry.
It is not time for lunch. We still have a ways to go.
And she fell past bookshelves and thought about taking one of the books, but she did not know to whom they belonged, and there was no one to ask permission of. Alice calculated that she must be getting somewhere near the centre of the earth, and thought she would never be afraid of falling down the stairs again after this. Alice thought of her cat Dinah, and that she would miss her. She hoped that somebody would put out a saucer of milk for her at tea time. She wished that Dinah was with her, but thought that she had seen no mice for Dinah in the air. But she might catch a bat, and that's like a mouse. Then she wondered if cats ate bats, because bats look very like mice, but have wings. She kept asking herself the question, do cats eat bats? But sometimes it would become, do bats eat cats?
Do cats eat bats? No, they don't.
Since Alice could not answer the question, she began to dream of herself walking hand in hand with Dinah and asking her, "Now, Dinah, my dear, tell me the truth. Did you ever eat a bat?" When suddenly, bump, bump, she landed upon a heap of sticks and shavings, and the fall was over.
Was she hurt?
Not a bit. She saw the white rabbit, but he scurried off again, and he turned a corner and disappeared. Alice followed him and found herself in a long corridor with many doors and with lamps hanging down from the ceiling. The white rabbit was hurrying down the corridor, muttering, "My ears and whiskers, how late it's getting!" He turned another corner and disappeared again. The hall had many locked doors and a glass table, and next to the table a curtain, and behind the curtain a small door only 15 inches high.
How did I get here? And how will I get out of here?
Alice tried all of the doors, but they were all locked. Finally, she came to the table.
What is this on the table? A golden key. Maybe this is the way I can get out of this hall. No use. The locks are either too big or the key is too small. Now what shall I do? Hello, what is this curtain? I will try the key in this small door. It fits perfectly. What a beautiful garden on the other side. Flowers and fountains and bright sunshine. Oh, how I would love to go for a walk in there. But I cannot even get my head through this door, much less the rest of me. What shall I do? I did not see this bottle before. A tag on it says, "Drink me." I must be very careful. Mummy told me never to drink things when I did not know what it was. It could be poison. Let me see if it says poison on the bottle or has a skull or something on it. No, it does not seem to. Well, there doesn't seem to be anything else to do, so I will try it. It tastes good. What a strange feeling I'm having. The room seems to be growing, or I seem to be shrinking. This is very curious.
The table and the room grew around Alice.
Well, now I'm the right size for that door, and I can open it and go into the garden. Oh my, but I don't have the key. It is on the table and I can't reach it at my present size. What am I to do? I can try to climb up the table leg. No, that will never work. Oh, there is no use crying like that. I advise you to stop it this minute.
Looking around, she saw an ebony box under the table with a very small cake.
How curious. I did not see that cake a moment ago. It has currants on the top that say, "Eat me." Well, I will eat it, and if it makes me grow taller, I can reach the key, and if I grow smaller, I may be able to creep under the door, so I don't care which happens. Which way? Which way? Nothing.
She finished the cake, and the room shrank so that her head touched the ceiling.
This time I'm opening out like the largest telescope imaginable, or everything around me is shrinking. But now I can reach the golden key.
She took it from the table and lay down on the floor to open the little door.
It is a lovely garden, but I cannot get into it. What am I to do?
The White Rabbit appeared again at the end of the hall with gloves and a fan and came towards Alice talking to himself. "Oh, the Duchess, how I dread to see her. She'll be filled with malice, which I shall now incur. Oh, the Duchess will be ruthless, I know it very well. If I cause her any weakness, I know that she will yell.
If you please, sir."
Oh! The White Rabbit, frightened, scurried off, but dropped his gloves and a fan.
How strange everything is today, and yesterday everything was just ordinary. I wonder if I've changed overnight. Was I the same when I got up this morning? I almost think I remember feeling a little different. But if I'm not the same person, who am I? I am sure I am not Gertrude, because her hair is in such long ringlets, and mine isn't at all. And I'm not Florence, because I know all sorts of things that she doesn't. Oh, she knows such a very little. How puzzling it is! Let me see if I know what I used to know. 4 times 5 is 12, 4 times 6 is 13, and 4 times 7 is... Oh dear, I shall never get to 20 at this rate. Let's try geography. London is the capital of France, and Rome is the capital of Yorkshire, and Paris... Oh dear, that is all wrong. I must have been changed into Florence. I will try to say a rhyme I know. How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale. How cheerfully it seems to grin, how neatly spreads its claws, and welcomes little fishes in with gently smiling jaws.
Now, back in the boat, Charles Dodgson and the 3 girls are transfixed.
Does the crocodile eat the little fishes? Of course, silly. Oh.
Mr. Dodgson is making nonsense again. We learned Mr. Watts's poem from our teacher, and he's making fun of it. It goes like this. How doth the little busy bee improve each shining hour, and gather honey all the day from every opening flower? In works of labour or of skill, I would be busy too, for Satan finds some mischief still for idle hands to do.
I like Mr. Dodgson's poem better.
Oh, but it upset Alice because she could not remember that poem and thought she had become Florence, who didn't know anything.
Oh, you do go on, Charles. But mind your oars and pull with me. 1, 2, 3, pull. 1, 2, 3, pull.
Tell us some more about Alice's adventures while you were rowing.
Well, Alice, of course, knew they were not the right words to the poem, and she started to cry. She decided that if someone came and told her to come out of the rabbit hole, she would say to them, "Tell me who I am first, and if I like that, I will come out, but if not, I will stay down here until I am somebody that I would like to be." At that moment, she looked at her hands, and she noticed that she had put on one of the rabbit's gloves, and realised she must have been shrinking again. Well, how could that be? Well, it was the fan she was holding, and she quickly threw it away just in time to prevent herself from disappearing altogether. But she suddenly found herself in salt water, and thought how queer that was. Then she realised that it was the tears that she had shed when she was so large. She also realised that there was another creature in the pool of water with her, and it was a mouse.
I wish I hadn't cried so much. I suppose I am being drowned in my own tears. That is certainly a strange thing to have happen to one, But everything is strange today. Something else seems to be caught in this pool too. I can't quite make it out. I shall go over to try to see it better. Why, it is a mouse! Would it do any good to speak to it, do you suppose? But everything is so unusual down here that maybe it can speak too. Anyway, there is no harm in trying. Oh, Mouse, excuse me, but do you know the way out of this pool? I'm very tired of swimming about here. Perhaps it doesn't understand English. Maybe it is a French mouse that came over with William the Conqueror. I will try the first sentence of my French lesson book. Où ma chatte? Oh my, I seem to have frightened it and it has leapt out of the water. Oh, I beg your pardon, I quite forgot you don't like cats.
Not like cats. Would you like cats if you were me?
Perhaps not. Don't be angry. I wish I could show you our cat Dinah. I think you would like her. She's such a dear thing, and she sits purring so nicely by the fire, licking her paws and washing her face, and she's such a nice soft thing to pet. Why, she's the best at catching mice. Oh, I beg your pardon. I've done it again. We won't talk about her any more if you'd rather not.
We? As if I would want to talk about such a subject.
I promise I won't. Are you fond of dogs? There is such a nice little dog near our house. I would like to show you. A little bright-eyed terrier, you know, with such long curly fur. It will fetch things when you throw them, and it will sit up and beg for its dinner and do all sorts of tricks. I can't remember the half of them. It belongs to a farmer, and he says it is quite useful, even worth its weight in gold around his barn. He says it kills all the rats and... Oh dear, I'm afraid I've offended it again. Mouse dear, do come back again. We won't talk about cats or dogs either if you don't like them.
Let us get to the shore, and then I will tell you my history, and you'll understand why it is I hate cats and dogs.
It is getting quite crowded in here, I must say. There is a duck, a dodo, a lory and an eaglet, and several other animals swimming in the water as well.
Act 2. Going ashore.
What are a lory and a dodo?
Well, a lory is a parrot, and a dodo is an extinct bird that couldn't fly.
And the duck is Mr. Duckworth. The dodo is Mr. Dodgson, who sometimes speaks like this. Dodo Dodgson. The lory is me, Lorena, and the eaglet, dear Edith, is you. Of course, Alice is in it too. Oh.
This time I've put us all into the story.
This might be a good time for us to climb out of our shared pool of tears, otherwise known as the Thames River, and have lunch. It is a good place to set foot on land and pull up the boat. There's a stack of hay we can get behind, sit in the shade and have our lunch. What do you say to that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, come along then.
Mr. Dodgson, now that we have finished lunch, could you tell us more about Alice?
Oh, I don't know. If I have breath. I feel drowsy and lethargic from this very warm weather and having just eaten lunch.
Oh, really, you must. If you don't, we shall all doze here and not be able to sleep tonight. Mummy will be very cross with us.
I think you must, Charles, or we shall indeed nod off and not get the little girls home in time.
Well, if I must. Well, let me see. Where did I leave off?
Alice was getting out of her pool of tears.
Oh, yes. Well, after a conversation with the friends she met in the water, which I will take up another time, and finally drying herself, she started off again and came upon the White Rabbit. He appeared to be looking for something. Alice guessed that it must be his fan and white kid gloves that he was missing. After her swim in her pond of tears, everything had changed entirely. The great hall, the glass table, the little door had all vanished completely. Soon the White Rabbit noticed Alice and said to her, "Mary Ann, what are you doing there? Run home right this minute, fetch my fan and pair of gloves there, and be quick about it." Alice surmised that he had mistaken her for the housemaid, but she ran off in the direction that he pointed. She did feel a little annoyed about it, but thought that it would be better not to provoke him, and anyway, everyone seemed to feel they could order her about in this queer place. She found a house with a bright brass nameplate on it that said W. Rabbit, and without knocking, she went in. There, on a table near the window, she found a fan and some white gloves, which she took up. She was about to leave the house when she again found a bottle, but there was no label on it. Nevertheless, she uncorked it and drank from it, and this time she grew very large, very fast, until her head was pressing against the roof. She wished she had not drunk so much, or at least had left the house sooner, because, as it was, she could now not go out the door, and even had to put one arm out the window and one foot up the chimney to have enough room. Luckily for Alice, the little magic bottle had now had its full effect, and she grew no larger. Still, it was very uncomfortable, and as there seemed to be no sort of chance of ever getting out of the room again, it was no wonder she felt unhappy. The White Rabbit returned and called out, "Marianne, Marianne, come here, fetch my gloves this minute." But he could not get into the house, and she could not get out. She wished that they would remove the roof so that she could leave.
Sometimes I wish that I could drink something that would make me as big as my sisters. I don't know why I was born the last and am the smallest. That is not so bad. Sometimes you don't get asked to do things because you are the youngest, and instead I have to do them. Then I wish I was small as you. Other times, when Mother and I quarrel, I wish I were bigger than she, and I could decide things.
Well, Alice certainly wanted to get out of the house. Finally, the White Rabbit and his helpers started to throw pebbles into the house through the window. Alice warned them, "You better not do that again." To her surprise, the pebbles began turning into little cakes, and Alice thought, maybe if I eat one, they may make some changes in my size. Sure enough, she swallowed one and immediately began shrinking.
Dodson, is this an extempore romance of yours?
Oh, yes, quite.
What's extempore?
He means, have I just made it up? And the answer is yes.
Oh.
But back to Alice. As soon as she was small enough, she ran out of the house into the nearby woods and did not stop running. As she wandered about in the wood, she came upon a mushroom with a blue caterpillar sitting on the top of it. Alice talked to the caterpillar who was sitting on a mushroom, smoking a long hookah.
Who are you?
I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least I knew who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then.
What do you mean by that? Explain yourself.
I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir, because I'm not myself, you see.
I don't see at all.
I'm afraid I can't put it any more clearly, for I can't understand it myself to begin with, and being so many different sizes in one day is very confusing.
It isn't.
Well, perhaps you haven't found it so yet, but when you form a cocoon and turn into a butterfly, you will some day, you know. I should think you will find it a little strange then, won't you?
Not a bit.
Well, perhaps your feelings may be different then. All I know is it would feel very queer to me.
You? Who are you?
I think you ought to tell me who you are first.
Why? Come back. I've got something important to say. Keep your temper.
Is that all?
No. So you think you're changed, do you?
I'm afraid I have, sir. I can't remember things that I used to know, and I don't keep the same size for 10 minutes together.
Can't remember what things?
Well, I've tried to say, how doth the little busy bee, but it all came out differently.
You are a very peculiar child. What size do you want to be?
Oh, I'm not particular as to size. Only one doesn't like changing so often, you know.
I don't know. Now don't go losing your temper.
I have never been so contradicted in all my life.
Are you content with your present size?
Well, I should like to be a little larger, sir, if you wouldn't mind. 3 inches is such a wretched height to be.
It is a very good height indeed.
But I'm not used to it. I really wish you all would not be so easily offended.
You will get used to it in time.
He got off the mushroom and started to depart into the grass and woods, but then called back,
One side will make you grow taller, and the other side will make you grow smaller.
One side of what? The other side of what?
of the mushroom.
And he disappeared.
But the mushroom is very round and it does not have two sides. How am I to know which is which? He's gone. Oh, what am I to do? Well, if I spread my arms as wide as possible and break off a bit, maybe it will do something.
She took a bite.
Oh, I'm shrinking. I will disappear completely. I'd better try a portion from the other hand.
She nibbled on what was in her left hand, and the woods began to shrink until Alice was at treetop level. Suddenly, a pigeon started to beat Alice with its wings.
Serpent! Serpent! Yes!
I'm not a serpent. Leave me alone.
Serpent! I say again! I have tried every way, but nothing seems to get them to leave me alone. I've tried the roots of trees, I've tried banks, I've tried edges, but those serpents, there is no pleasing them. And if it wasn't enough trouble hatching the eggs, but I must be on the lookout for serpents, night and day. Why, I haven't had a wink of sleep these past 3 weeks.
I'm very sorry you've been annoyed.
And just as I'd taken the highest tree in the wood, just as I was thinking I should be free of 'em at last, they needs must come bothering me down from the sky. Ugh! Serpent!
But I'm not a serpent, I tell you.
Well, what are you? I can see you are trying to invent something.
I'm a little girl.
A likely story indeed. I've seen a good many little girls in my time, but never one that looked down at me from the top of a tree. No, no! You're a serpent, and there's no use denying it. I suppose you'll be telling me next that you never tasted an egg.
I have tasted eggs, certainly, but little girls eat eggs quite as much as serpents do, you know.
I don't believe it, but if they do, why, they're a kind of serpent. That is all I can say. You're looking for eggs. I know that well enough. And what does it matter to me whether you're a little girl or a serpent?
It matters a good deal to me, but I'm not looking for eggs as it happens, and if I was, I shouldn't want yours. I don't like them raw.
Well, be off then.
Alice began to nibble at her mushroom, first on one side, then on the other, until she reached a size she liked.
How puzzling all these changes are. I'm never sure what I'm going to be from one minute to the next.
Back to the riverbank. I think Edith has fallen asleep.
Oh dear, she has.
She will want to prattle at bedtime, and that will make Mummy unhappy with us.
We must try to wake her up.
Where am I?
You're in a field. We have had lunch and Mr. Dodgson has been telling us stories.
Oh,
Now don't go back to sleep again.
but I am feeling sleepy. Very sleepy.
Come on, let's run around the haystack. That will get the blood racing again. Do you know Pop Goes the Weasel? I will sing the first verse and you follow. Then Mr. Dodgson can lead the next verse. Ready? Let's go. Half a pound of tuppenny rice and half a pound of treacle. That's the way the money goes. Pop goes the weasel. Charles, your turn.
Speak roughly to your little boy and beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy, because he knows it teases. I speak severely to my boy. I beat him when he sneezes, for he can thoroughly enjoy the pepper when he pleases.
Quite right. Well done indeed.
You are very good at making up nonsense rhymes.
Well, thank you, Miss Alice.
I don't know how you come up with them, Charles.
You really must make up a story with that rhyme.
Well, maybe the next time.
Tell us more about Alice's adventures, but put us in it.
Well, let's see. Alice found herself near a tree, and looking up, she saw a cat grinning at her.
Cats don't grin.
Well, this one could. Alice was near a tree, above which sat a Cheshire cat.
Could you tell me why you smile?
All cats smile.
I don't think so. I've never seen Dinah smile.
I don't know who Dinah is, but all Cheshire cats smile.
Are you a Cheshire cat then?
Of course.
Are there many Cheshire cats?
Well, I only know one.
I see. Cheshire Puss, would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?
Of course. but that depends a good deal on where you want to get to.
I don't much care where.
Then it doesn't matter which way you go.
I just want to get somewhere.
Oh, you're sure to do that if you only walk long enough.
What sort of people live about here?
In that direction lives a hatter. And in that direction lives a March hare. Visit either you like. They're both mad.
But I don't want to go among mad people.
Oh, you can't help that. We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad.
How do you know I'm mad?
Simple. You must be, or you wouldn't have come here.
And how do you know that you're mad?
To begin with, a dog's not mad. You grant that?
I suppose so.
Well, then you see a dog growls when it's angry and wags its tail when it's pleased. Now I growl when I'm pleased and wag my tail when I'm angry. Therefore, I'm mad.
I call it purring, not growling.
Call it what you like.
And the cat vanished from tail to smile.
Well, I have often seen a cat without a grin, but a grin without a cat. It is the most curious thing I ever saw in all my life. I've seen hatters before. The March hare will be much more interesting, and perhaps as this is May, it won't be raving mad. At least not so mad as it was in March.
She turned and walked in the direction of the March hare.
Suppose it should be raving mad after all. I almost wish I'd gone to see the hatter instead.
She came upon a small house with a long table in front of it under a tree. At the table were the March hare, the hatter, having tea, and a dormouse sitting between them fast asleep. Although the table was a long one with many settings, the three at the table were all sitting at one corner.
No room.
No room!
No room!
No room!
There's plenty of room.
She sat down on an armchair at the end.
Have some wine.
I don't see any wine.
There isn't any.
Then it wasn't very polite of you to offer it.
It wasn't very polite of you to sit down without being invited.
I didn't know it was your table. It's laid for a great many more than 3.
Your hair wants cutting.
You should learn not to make personal remarks. It's very rude.
Why is a raven like a writing desk?
I'm glad you're asking riddles. They're fun. I believe I can guess that.
Do you mean that you think you can find out the answer to it?
Have you guessed the riddle yet?
No, I give up. What's the answer?
I haven't the slightest idea. Nor I.
I think you might do something better with the time than wasting it in asking riddles that have no answers.
If you knew time as well as I do, you wouldn't talk of wasting it. It's a hymn.
I don't know what you mean.
Of course you don't. I dare say you never even spoke to time.
Perhaps not, but I know I have to beat time when I learn music.
Ah, that accounts for it. He won't stand beating. Now, if you only kept on good terms with him, he'd do almost anything you liked with the clock. For instance, suppose it were 9 o'clock in the morning, just in time to begin lessons. You'd only have to whisper a hint to time, and around goes the clock in a twinkling. 1:30, time for lunch.
I only wish it was.
That would be grand, certainly, but then I shouldn't be hungry for it, you know.
Not at first, perhaps, but you could keep it to 1:30 as long as you liked.
Is that how you manage?
Not I. We quarrelled last March, just before the March hare went mad, you know. It was at the great concert given by the Queen of Hearts, and I had to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Bat, How I Wonder What You're At. You know the song, perhaps?
I've heard something like it.
It goes on, you know, in that way. Well, I'd hardly finished the first verse when the Queen bawled out, "He's murdering the time! Off with his head!"
How dreadfully savage.
And ever since then, he won't do a thing I ask. It's always 6 o'clock now.
Is that the reason so many tea things are set out here?
Yes, that's it. It's always tea time, and we've no time to wash the things between whiles.
Then you keep moving round, I suppose.
Exactly so, as things get used up.
But what happens when you come to the beginning again?
Suppose we change the subject. I'm getting tired of this. I vote the young lady tells us a story.
I'm afraid I don't know one.
Well, then the
dormouse shall. Wake up, dormouse.
Wake up!
I wasn't asleep. I heard every word you fellows were saying.
Tell us a story.
Yes, please do.
And be quick about it, or you'll be asleep again before it's done.
Once upon a time, there were 3 little sisters, and their names were Elsie, Lacey, and Tilly, and they lived at the bottom of a well.
What did they live on?
They lived on treacle.
They shouldn't have done that, you know. They'd have gotten very ill eating so much sweet.
So they were very ill.
But why did they live at the bottom of a well?
Take some more tea.
I've had nothing yet, so I can't take more.
You mean you can't take less? It's very easy to take more than nothing.
Nobody asked your opinion.
Who is making personal remarks now? Alice helped herself to some tea and toast.
Why did they live at the bottom of a well?
It was a treacle well.
There's no such thing.
Shh! No.
If you can't be civil, you'd better finish the story for yourself.
No, please go on. I won't interrupt you again. I dare say there may be one somewhere.
One indeed. And so these three little sisters, they were learning to draw, you know.
What did they draw?
Treacle.
I want a clean cup. Let's all move one place on. He moved to the next chair and the others followed, Alice reluctantly.
But I don't understand. Where did they draw the treacle from?
You can draw water out of a water well, so I should think you could draw treacle out of a treacle well, eh, stupid?
But they were in the well.
Of course they were well in. They were learning to draw and they drew all manner of things. Everything that begins with an M.
Why with an M?
Why not?
The Dormouse started to doze, and the Hatter pinched him to waken him.
Everything that begins with an M, like mousetrap, and the moon, and memory, and muchness. You know you say things are much of a muchness? Did you ever see such a thing as a drawing of a muchness?
Really, now that you asked me, I don't think.
Oh, then you shouldn't talk.
That is the last straw. I'm not going to stay at this tea party any longer.
And Alice left.
Act 3. Resuming the voyage. Charles Dodgson, Robinson Duckworth, and the Liddell children are all sitting behind the haystacks, but the hour has grown later. Well, Charles, it's been very pleasurable, but I really think we should return to our skiff and start back to the house. It is 4 o'clock, and we can't make time do as we would like any more than Alice could. What do you think?
Well, let's ask the girls what they think. Girls?
No, please, a little longer.
Tell us another story.
You could help row the boat. Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, could I? No, we want to hear another story.
Another story, and with a nonsense poem in it.
How about just a nonsense poem? Mr. Dodgson, could you make one up as we walk to the boat?
Maybe something with water creatures in it.
But not crocodiles.
Charles, do you think you could do something like that for the girls?
Well, I could try.
Then it is decided. Everyone up, and be sure to pick up your bonnets.
Will you walk a little faster? Said a whiting to a snail. There's a porpoise right behind us, and he's treading on my tail. See how eagerly the lobsters and the turtles all advance. They are waiting on the pebbles. Will you come and join the dance? Will you, won't you? Will you, won't you? Will you join the dance? Will you, won't you? Will you, won't you? Will you join the dance? You can really have no notion how delightful it will be when they take us up and throw us with the lobsters out to sea. But the snail replied, too far, and gave a look askance. Said he thanked the whiting kindly, but he would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, would not join the dance. What matters it how far we go, his scaly friend replied. The farther off from England, the nearer is to France. There is another shore, you know, upon the other side. Then turn not pale, beloved snail, but come and join the dance. Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance?
Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance?
Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance?
Please, do another one.
All right, here's another silly one. 'Tis the voice of the lobster. I heard him declare, you have baked me too brown. I must sugar my hair. As a duck with his eyelids, so he with his nose trims his belt and his buttons and turns out his toes. When the sands are all dry, he is gay as a lark and will talk in contemptuous tones of the shark. But when the tide rises and sharks are around, his voice has a timid and most tremulous sound. Now repeat it after me.
When the sands are all dry, he is gay as a lark, and will talk in contemptuous tones of the shark. But when the tide rises and sharks are around, his voice has a timid and most tremulous sound.
explained, please?
What would you like explained?
About his toes? How could he turn them out with his nose?
It's the first position in ballet.
Alice, try to keep up, please.
I am.
Now, the party's back in the rowboat. Robinson Duckworth is sitting in the very front. Lorena is at the first set of oars, and Alice and Edith sit together in the next seat, each having an oar. Charles Dodgson is holding the tiller. Girls, you must try to pull on your oars at the same time.
Alice doesn't wait for me.
I do too. You don't pull your oar out soon enough.
This is hard work.
Well, you could pull your oars in and we can just drift with the current and Mr. Dodgson can keep us from bumping against the shore.
All right. I'm getting wet anyway.
I'm bored. There's nothing to do.
I miss Mummy.
She is at a garden party.
I know, but I miss her just the same. What is a garden party anyway? It is where important people drink lemonade and play croquet and talk.
Mr. Dodgson, could you make up a story about a garden party, please?
I will tell you one next time.
But this is next time.
You are too clever for me. Well, where did we leave Alice then? Oh, yes, she had just left the Mad Hatter's tea party. Well, Alice suddenly found herself again in the long hall with the little glass table. She thought that this time she would manage it better, and she took the golden key and unlocked the door that led into the garden. And then she nibbled at a piece of the mushroom that she had kept in her pocket and became smaller until she was small enough to go through the passageway into the garden, among the bright flower beds and cool fountains. There was a garden filled with people who wore images of playing cards. The Queen of Hearts saw Alice and said to the Knave of Hearts,
Who is this?
but he only smiled.
Idiot!
So she turned to Alice.
What's your name, child?
My name is Alice, so please your majesty.
And who are these?
She pointed to the gardeners.
How should I know? It's no business of mine.
Off with her head! Off with...
Nonsense!
The King of Hearts said,
Remember, my dear, she is only a child.
I see. Off with their heads!
She was pointing to the gardeners. The Queen and the procession then moved on, and the gardeners ran to Alice for protection.
You shan't be beheaded.
She hid them behind her.
Are their heads off?
Their heads are gone, if it please your majesty.
Very well. Can you play croquet?
Yes.
Come on then.
Alice joined the procession in a spot next to the White Rabbit, who spoke to her in a loud whisper. You haven't played it this way. Flamingos are the mallets, groundhogs are the ball in play, bent over grenadiers the wickets.
Get to your places!
Everybody ran in different directions. The grenadiers doubled over to make arches. The players all played at once without taking turns. The Queen went around shouting,
Off with his head!
or
Off with her head!
Alice noticed something.
Why, it's the Cheshire Cat. Now I shall have someone to talk to.
How are you getting on?
I don't think they play at all fairly, and they all quarrel so dreadfully one can't hear oneself speak. They don't seem to have any rules in particular. At least, if there are, nobody follows them. You have no idea how confusing it is, all the things being alive. For instance, there's the arch I've got to go through next, walking about at the other end of the ground, and I should have croqueted the Queen's hedgehog just now, only it ran away when it saw mine coming.
How do you like the Queen?
Not at all. She's so extremely
She noticed the Queen just behind her listening.
likely to win that it's hardly worthwhile finishing the game.
The Queen smiled and moved on. The King of Hearts said,
Who are you talking to?
It's a friend of mine, a Cheshire Cat. Allow me to introduce it.
Ugh, I don't like the look of it. However, it may kiss my hand, if it likes. I'd rather not. Don't be impertinent and don't look at me like that.
A cat may look at a king. I read that in some book, but now I don't remember where.
Well, it must be removed.
The Queen passed by.
My dear, I wish you would have this cat removed.
Off with his head!
The executioner appeared.
What is it that you want me to do, your highnesses?
We want you to cut that cat's head off.
From what?
From its body, of course.
But I don't see anybody.
Well, cut its head off anyway.
I don't see how I can cut its head off if there isn't any body to cut it off from.
Anything that has a head can be beheaded. You're not to talk nonsense.
Well, I have never before cut a head off unless there was a body to cut it off from. And I am not going to begin at this stage of my life.
If something isn't done about it in less than no time, I shall have everybody executed all around.
By this point, the Cheshire Cat had entirely disappeared again.
My good man, come with me. We must find that cat so you can behead it.
Don't stand around gawking. Return to the game.
Now we're back to the boating party.
How could he cut the Cheshire Cat's head off?
Well, it doesn't make any difference because he disappeared again.
But if the head was still there... Well, he couldn't, of course. But Edith, it is all made up. Right, Mr. Dodgson?
Quite so, Lorena.
Why is the Queen always so mean?
Maybe because she has 10 children.
Or maybe because she has all those other kings and queens visiting. I think I shouldn't like to give garden parties like that.
I'm always on my best behaviour when my friends visit.
We'll be back to Folly Bridge soon.
Did Mummy pack any snacks? You ate them already, Edith. Oh.
Tell us one more adventure before we get back, Mr. Dodgson.
Well, let's see. How about the story of the Knave of Hearts who stole some tarts?
Oh, yes.
So now we're in court for the trial of the Knave of Hearts.
Hear, hear, Herald. Read the accusations.
The herald was the White Rabbit. He blew 3 blasts on a trumpet and unrolled a scroll. The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them quite away.
Jury, consider your verdict.
Oh, not yet, Your Majesty. The evidence comes first, lest the trial be a travesty and justice much the worst.
Call the first witness.
First witness, come up, if you please. Sit in the witness chair. Do tell the truth, don't be a tease, before you get down from there. The Mad Hatter came forward with a teacup and a piece of bread. I beg your pardon, Your Majesty, for bringing these in, but I hadn't quite finished my tea when I was sent for.
Oh, you ought to have finished. When did you begin?
14th of March, I should think it was.
15th.
16th.
Jury, write that down. Hatter, take off your hat.
It isn't mine.
Jury, consider. Stolen?
I keep them to sell. I've none of my own. I make hats to sell.
Give your evidence and don't be nervous, or I shall have you executed on the spot.
Yes, Your Majesty. I am trying. I am nervous, Your Majesty.
Give your evidence or I'll have you executed, whether you are nervous or not.
I am a poor man, Your Majesty, and I hadn't begun my tea, not above a week or so, and what with the bread and butter getting so thin, and the twinkling of the tea...
The twinkling of what?
It began with the tea.
Of course twinkling begins with a T. Do you take me for a dunce? Go on.
I'm a poor man, and most things twinkled after that, only the March Hare said...
I didn't.
You did.
I deny it. Jury, the March Hare denies it. Leave out that part.
Well, at any rate, the Dormouse said... Oh, the Dormouse is asleep. After that, I cut some more bread and butter.
No, come along. What did the Dormouse say?
That I can't remember.
You must remember or I'll have you executed.
He dropped his teacup and bread and then went down on one knee. I'm a poor man, Your
You
Majesty.
are a very poor speaker. If that is all you know about it, you may stand down.
I can't go any lower. I'm on the floor as it is.
Then you may sit down.
I would rather finish my tea.
You may go.
The Hatter left.
And just take his head off outside.
Call the next witness.
The next name on my list here is Alice, if you please. Come forward, try to be sincere, do not the court displease.
What do you know about this business?
Nothing.
Nothing whatever?
Nothing whatever.
That's very important, Rabbit.
It's unimportant, I believe, Your Majesty intended. The opposite here could deceive. The case would be upended.
No, unimportant, of course, I meant. Important. Unimportant, important, unimportant. Silence! Rule 42. All persons more than a mile high must leave the court.
I'm not a mile high.
You are.
Nearly 2 miles high.
Well, I shan't go at any rate. Besides, that's not a regular rule. You invented it just now.
It's the oldest rule in the book.
Then it ought to be number 1.
Consider your verdict.
Your Majesty, new evidence. This note was just discovered. It might be of great significance. The whole plot here uncovered.
Rabbit, what's in it?
It's not, Your Highness, opened yet. It seems a missive clear. To somebody or other, I'll bet. The evidence is here.
It must have been written to someone, unless it was written to nobody, which isn't usual, you know. Who is it directed to?
There's nothing written on the front and nothing on the back. Delivery would be a hunt. How could one send it back? Ooh, it's not a letter after all. Just a set of verses. All written in a careful scrawl, which frequently reverses.
Are they in the prisoner's handwriting?
No, it does not look like his hand. That is the queerest thing. It's nothing I can understand, not at all his writing.
Well, he must have imitated somebody else's hand.
Please, Your Majesty.
Yes, go along, Knave.
I didn't write it, and they can't prove that I did. There's no name signed at the end.
If you didn't sign it, that only makes the matter worse. You must have meant some mischief, or else you'd have signed your name like an honest man. Yes, jury?
Yes.
Thank you.
That proves his guilt, of course, so...
It doesn't prove anything of the sort. Why, you don't even know what the verses are about.
Read them.
Where shall I begin, Your Majesty?
Well, Rabbit, begin at the beginning and go on till you come to the end, then stop.
They told me you had been to her, and mentioned me to him. She gave me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We know it to be true. If she should push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her 1, they gave him 2. You gave us 3 or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free, exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret kept from all the rest between yourself and me.
That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet. So now, let the jury...
If any one of them can explain it, I'll give him 6pence. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it.
If there's no meaning in it, that saves a world of trouble. You know, as we needn't try to find any, and yet I don't know. I seem to see some meaning in them after all. Said I could not swim. You, Knave, you can't swim, can you?
Do I look like I could? I'm a paper playing card.
All right, so far we know it to be true. That's the jury, of course. If she should push the matter on, that must be the Queen. What would become of you? What indeed? I gave her 1, they gave him 2. Why, that must be what he did with the tarts, you know.
But it goes on, they all returned from him to you.
Why, there they are.
He pointed to the tarts on the table.
Nothing can be clearer than that. Then again, before she had this fit. You never had fits, my dear, I think?
Never!
She threw an ink bottle at the jury.
Then the words don't fit you. It's a pun. Let the jury consider their verdict.
No! Sentence first, verdict afterwards.
Stuff and nonsense. The idea of having the sentence first.
Hold your tongue.
I won't.
Off with her head!
Who cares for you? You're just a pack of playing cards.
The cards all scattered away.
Back to the boating party near the shore. Well, here we are, back to where we set out.
It was a very pleasant voyage on the Thames. Thank you, Mr. Duckworth.
Yes.
And we have had lots of adventures on the way, thanks to Mr. Dodgson.
I didn't understand the letter and the poem.
It was a nonsense poem.
Oh,
The stars are just beginning to come out.
I see one there.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. When the blazing sun is gone, when he nothing shines upon, then you show your little light. Twinkle, twinkle all the night.
Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder what you're at. Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky.
It doesn't look like a tea tray.
Well, it is tea time, so maybe it would be better if it did.
Well, thank you, girls, for sharing this lovely day with Mr. Duckworth and myself and putting up with my fanciful tales.
When can we go again?
Well, we will have to discuss it with your parents.
On another day, when the sun is warm and glowing like this.
Quite.
Oh, Mr. Dodgson, I wish you would write out Alice's adventures for me.
Oh, I don't know. I will think about it.
The Oxford Don is again sitting in his room.
Do you see what I mean? You remember when he said it was a golden afternoon? Well, naturally, he was suggesting that it was sunny and warm, yes? Well, the very day that he and Alice gave us the date of that little excursion was July 4th, 1862. Do you know what the weather report was? It was recorded. The weather that day, according to the London Meteorological Office, was cool and rather wet. In fact, it rained after 2 o'clock, and there was a thick cloud cover, as duly noted in the log of the Oxford Observatory that day. I rest my case.
The Don exits, and a white rabbit appears.
He rests his case, and makes a face. The jury is dismissed. 'Tis not a verdict I embrace. In what does it consist? Pray tell, what is a sunny day, and what the opposite? Is't in the heart, or in the ray? Please be more explicit. And if it be most in the heart, must it be in the play? And if it be, then in what part? Is it the story's sway? What does it give? Where does it live, that gives such warmth and joy? Is it but frill? Does it forgive? What balms does it employ? Oh, childhood's time does quickly pass, and all that we've discovered, and o'er us all doth grow the grass. Hold fast what's here recovered.
The end.